Hey, what is happening, Mr. Mark Fairley? How you doing today, brother?
Happy BS Friday to you, Dave Cooper, live.
I know. What a week, man. It's been such a great week. Listen, and today's no different. We're going to have a lot of fun today. Mark, you've been up to a lot lately, man. I mean, I've been seeing you all over the place. All your podcasts, all your photos, your stuff with Build and that hat, right? Who's the hat? It's Burt Bruton.
Oh, yeah. Jake Bruton, he's been wonderful, right? Our industry, Dave, we're so blessed to be a part of it, aren't we?
We are.
Everyone in the past several years have been very open to sharing. And that's what I like about this platform. This is our 37th week of you and I getting together on Friday, right? Big thumbs up,
I
Dave.
love it. I love it.
A big thumbs up to everyone who comes on to present, to share, and then the community that joins the conversation on YouTube, on LinkedIn,
Facebook, and Twitch. And why are we on Twitch, Mark?
Because Greg Ugaldi says it's the coolest thing out there. And when Greg Ugaldi says it's cool, Dave, it's cool. So
it is.
Speaking of that, let's just give a shout out to Monday. When Greg came on Monday talking about IBSX and giving us the updates on the industry, NAHB in general, because of the oversight that he has and the insight that he shares. That's a captivating way to start a week. And if you take that time, you'll be accelerated. And you'll be joined by like-minded people, and I love it. He's on once or twice a month now, religiously.
Typically once a month, but he's on a lot of shows. He's chiming in during the weeks, quite often, and he's a busy guy. They got winter meetings right now and IBS coming up. And for those of you who are listening and don't know Greg Ugaldi, go look him up on LinkedIn. He is the immediate past chairman of the National Association of Home Builders and has become a great partner and advocate for us to keep spreading the word on building science and building systems and healthy homes and everything else that we believe in, and he believes in it. And it's so much that he takes one day a month to join this show just to talk about those things, as well as talk about what's happening at a very high level. He plays in a much different world than the rest of us down here.
He's very personable, and he always takes the time to give me a thumbs up. He gets a kick out of it. We're from that generation that a thumbs up is a powerful thing, right? To communicate to people. And it's very popular today on the virtual world. And I like to take full responsibility for its popularity. I'm happy to take all that credit. And
you took your humble pill today.
That's right. No applause, just money is what they say.
That's right.
No, enough with the lines, brother. Who do we have that could shed a better light? Who do we have that could shed a better light on today?
Well, listen, I mean, we're going to be talking about bike racks saving our planet. Not just once, but it sounds like this is the second time. And
again, yeah,
I know. And as we always do, I gotta do the intro a little bit here, Mark. We're just chatting away, but at Dave Cooper Live, we are bringing you the people and the processes that are building it better. Our guests and topics include experts in building systems to building science, building codes to the tech used to build it better. We are seeking out the best and the brightest in construction and discovering all the ways that innovative buildings come to life. And today is no different. And I think, Mark, it is time to bring in a special guest that Susan has no idea who is here. And by the way, Susan, I know she can hear me in the background. She said she might dance for us.
Yes.
No pressure, Susan. All right, let's do it. Let's bring him in.
Happy Friday. How's it going, guys?
Happening, Zach? How you been, man?
I've been well, thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you
and
back.
I'm excited to hear about the bike racks, the mythical bike or the bike racks that will save the world. So it's great. Do I get to introduce Susan? Because I'd be very happy to do so.
Before you get to introduce Susan, we got to introduce you, brother.
Hey, all right, that sounds good. So
there might be 3 or 4 people out there that haven't met Zach. So for the final half dozen or so, the man with the best background in the industry. And we're not talking about what's behind you. We're talking about
gray.
What you've done. But the gray is pretty sweet. I've learned today, Dave, that's not paint. That's a warm and calming and inviting backdrop for the world to be a part of.
I love
it. But Zach has he's done something amazing over time, and one of them is when he presented at the FIAS conference. The Black Swan was an incredible, I would say, talk, right, Zach? It was an indicator, and we're going to have to share that sometime. Everyone needs to hear it. If you haven't heard it, it will move you. And if it doesn't move you, I'm going to kick you in your tail because you weren't paying attention.
Is it on YouTube or somewhere we can see it? Because we can put a link to it so the audience can go there. And
I've got a written version of it that I can share for sure.
Yeah, sometime during the show, send it to me in the private chat, and we'll get it up in one of the banners so people. Oh, it's a written version. You said written, not a link. Yeah.
Yeah. No. There's a link.
Perfect. Okay.
I'll share it. Yeah. I mean, essentially, the idea here is that we've got significant challenges ahead, right? But what people aren't necessarily aware of is that meanwhile these amazing solutions have come to the fore, and so I'm talking specifically about the climate crisis and climate solutions. So the falling price of renewable energy has been breathtaking, and we have a lot of lessons that we can learn from that in the building industry. And passive house is a way of approaching buildings and understanding the building itself, not the mechanical equipment inside necessarily, but actually the building itself, its structure and its skin as technology. And so when we understand that, then the power of learning, just as it has done in solar panels and wind turbines, where every time you double the number of solar panels around the world, the price of solar energy goes down by about 25%. That's all because people are learning like these little micro lessons over time, and the same process can happen and is happening in the building industry. And that's, I think, one of the main inspirations for the Passive House Accelerator as a platform. And I think one of the things that you all provide with the Building Science Friday as well is sharing lessons learned and best practice and pitfalls to avoid. The more that we can do that and benefit from one another's expertise and hard-won experience, the quicker that we'll make this transition and drive any incremental cost down to zero and make good buildings the no-brainer choice.
So, Zach, why don't, before you introduce Susan, just take 5 seconds to 10 seconds or maybe 30 seconds, whatever you want to do, and just tell everybody who you are and what the Accelerator is, because on this show, we have a mix of everybody that understands building science and then people that are just new to all this. So how do they know what you have going on and who you are? And then we'll hop into, and then you can just run right into the introduction.
Okay, that sounds great. So my name is Zach Semke. I'm director of the Passive House Accelerator, and the Accelerator was started by Michael Ingwe of Baxt Ingwe Architects, and it's an online, open source, non-denominational platform for sharing information about high performance building design, high performance construction practice, and passive house. And we have a website with articles that people can publish, and we'll share on social media. We've got a strong social media presence. We also run events every week. So Mark, for instance, is a co-host of our Tuesday event called Passive House Accelerator Construction Tech, where they go into the technology, the technique, and the technical of passive house construction practice. And next week we have Kevin Brennan, and I'm a leader from 475 joining us to talk about fluid applied WRBs. So that's going to be great. We also do every Wednesday a global passive house happy hour. And this is how I met Susan. And the happy hour this next week is going to feature Deborah Moelis from Handel Architects, who's the designer behind some of the largest passive house projects throughout North America. People don't necessarily know, but passive house can apply to any building type. It's passive house from the German building. So Deborah has designed a high-rise student residence, is doing a high-rise office building in Boston that's passive house, affordable house, big, huge affordable housing project in New York. I know this is more than 10 seconds. I'm sorry.
We love you.
And we're working with AIA New York, the Custom Residential Architects Network, next week to do a sort of like a film festival, 4 video shorts of passive house practice, followed by a panel discussion with passive house architects and builders. So all this information is at the top of our homepage at passivehouseaccelerator.com. Okay, so that's my pitch about Passive House Accelerator. Please join us. There's lots of great stuff happening. So I'm gonna pivot now to something I'm really excited to be able to do, which is to introduce Susan. So Susan Raleigh, the story of my friendship with her is one of those COVID silver lining stories. As I mentioned, we do the happy hour. We've been doing this since a week after the lockdown hit. And it's meant to be this open, welcoming place where we can share lessons learned and stories. And people come to hear a fast, fun, and factual presentation. And then the purpose is to connect and to build community. So early on, Susan became one of the primary community builders on this happy hour Zoom call. And she put herself out there with her humor and her questions and her insights. So while I've never met Susan in person, I feel like I really know her. So she has over 20 years experience in sustainable buildings, in construction, in project management, also in workplace strategic consulting. Like many of us, Susan's early career did not start out in sustainability. She began as an engineer in the petroleum industry, building gas stations, car washes, and convenience stores. And then she shifted to the pulp and paper industry, where she designed, built, and sold pulp and paper mills. After her son was diagnosed with leukemia, she reassessed, and she went back to school to study environmental psychology in the Faculty of Environmental Design at the University of Montreal. And there she studied the interaction between people and buildings with a focus on design that, quote, supports occupant health, wellness, and optimum experience, which I think is language that we can all relate to. So she was an early adopter of LEED, hence the bike racks. And she managed large P3 sustainable building projects like the McGill University Health Center. She's the former chair of the Canada Green Building Council, the Quebec chapter, and has taught hundreds of new green building professionals the LEED building certification program. Today, Susan's a consultant in Toronto at HOK. Welcome, Susan.
Oh, I love it. Let's bring Susan in.
Oh, I'm going to cry. That was so sweet. Thank you, Zach.
Welcome, Susan. How are you?
Oh, right now I'm floating on a cloud. That was so sweet. And the same thing right back at you, Zach. It's one of these silver linings of COVID that, we get to meet all these wonderful people and, make friends if you want. So thank you for that introduction.
Yeah, absolutely, Susan.
Yeah,
Thank
for sure.
you.
I think that was one of the most well thought out introductions. We have some good ones. Last week was really good too, now that I think about it, but very well thought out, Zach. Awesome. What are you doing next Friday?
I'll be here.
I love it. All right. Well, Zach, hey, listen, I know there's some comments in the banners. Do we want to look at those real quick and then jump in, or we want to keep rocking and rolling? What do you think there, Mark?
I think let's go quick to comments, and then let's jump in. Let's roll back our shoulders and say hello to some folks. And by the way, I think when you said it's good that we had the silver lining and became friends, both Susan and Zach, I think you meant friends with a PH, right?
Oh,
for sure.
Whenever I'm with you, Mark, it's always a PH.
I love it. All right, let's do a couple comments before Zach leaves us here. Lloyd Alter.
Hey, Lloyd. How's it
Actually,
going?
Lloyd is the reason I'm here, because Lloyd talked about this, and I said,
really?
Oh, yeah. So thank you, Lloyd.
Hey, thanks, Lloyd, man. Appreciate that. Definitely. Always looking for great.
Lloyd, you're such a tree hugger, man. You're such a tree hugger.
He is such a tree
I
hugger.
love it. All right, here we go. The one and the only George Ryman. Good morning from DTE Materials in Phoenix, Arizona. Good to have you, George. Always a pleasure. Then we also have Peter Molinar. The Black Swan is the name of an excellent tavern in Toronto. Love
Yes.
it.
True.
Love it, love it, love it. Hey, Lloyd's everywhere. Lloyd's now on LinkedIn as well. And guess what? We're going to go to Twitch now. Sean St. Omar is now on Twitch. Happy BS Fridays, everyone. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, everybody. So we got through those things. Susan, Dave, Mark. Let's see. That's Sean again. Susan, Dave, and Mark are my PH friends. Love it. Zach, stick around if you like. We're going to put you back in the fish tank. But before you go, I want you to just tell us one thing that you have coming up that everybody should tune in for your Accelerator program this week.
Yeah, I definitely.
Now you only have 10 seconds.
The AIA New York thing on Tuesday is going to be really unique and really fun. So I hope that people join us for that. And it's focused on single family practice. It's good stuff.
Awesome.
Who's the moderator on Tuesday, Zach?
That's me. So I may be slightly biased here. I don't want to steal thunder from the Construction Tech Tuesday, Mark.
I think the technique, and the technology will be missing you. If you want to throw in the chat on LinkedIn or in our private chat here, Dave could throw up your stuff in the banner.
Okay.
And,
Okay, we'll do.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
All
Thanks.
right.
Thanks, Zach.
Zach, thank you. All right, Susan, here's the deal. We want to know everything about you from the moment you were born to this very moment in time. We want all the stuff straight from the hospital to this very moment. So I'm going to put you full screen. You got about 5 minutes to do it. Go for it. See you, Zach.
Hey, am I sharing my screen or not?
You're going to share your screen once you get started.
Okay, well, I'm started. I'm going. Share my screen. So thank you so much, Zach. You walked through my life. You talked about gas stations. You did not mention that I did take a break and I sailed around the world. So before I went back into pulp and paper. So, all the things, I got married, had kids. Yeah, you said I moved to LA. My son, he had cancer, and that's where everything just sort of changed. Went back to school, got my graduate degree in environmental psychology. I started working in an engineering firm again, but I really loved the lead. And why I loved the lead, the green building thing, was because it talked about what I had studied in environmental psychology, that whole indoor environmental quality thing, about comfort, about the human experience. That's what I found. But because I'm an engineer, a mechanical engineer, people thought, oh, you can do lead, no problem. But I was sort of sneaking in that whole, environmental behavior thing. So then, it was about the passive house. And just like Zach said, I just love those guys. That's where I am now. I'm still consulting, but I bridge those two worlds of sustainable design and of strategic consulting. So that's me. Is that good enough? Was that quick enough?
Well, hold on a second. No, it's not good enough. We got a lot to unpack here. Hold on a second. So first of all, right, we always find in this industry that change happens because of something personal. And that change was something that happened within your family, your son, right? Getting leukemia, right? And I think this is really interesting. Why did I really think I want to know why that made you change? Why are you looking at it differently? Because, the gasoline industry and the pulp industry, I wouldn't say is the most environmental practices out there when it comes to an industry. So the change, I think, would be really important for everybody to understand so they truly understand your story.
Yeah, well, thanks for that, Dave. Well, so when he was 3, and at that point you ask yourself, why would a child of 3 years old, why would they get cancer? And that's when I started to become obsessed. And that was before the internet really existed. And so searching was kind of tricky. And I even had a feng shui consultant come to my house, and they feng shuied the yin yang of the house, and that was great. And it wasn't so much that I was looking at a point for why would a child become sick because of the built environment. It eventually became, how come he got better because of the built environment? And because, for example, when we went to the sick kids, it was the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles, because we were living in Los Angeles at the time. When we went there, they're doing all this renovation work. So when we came in, and it was like a 3.5-year treatment of chemotherapy and radiation for him. But when we came in, one of the times, they had renovated the lobby, and there was this massive new aquarium with all this tropical fish, and they had all these play structures, of course, because it was Hollywood, Disney and La La Land. But you just felt, as you walked into that hospital, you just felt like elevated, and you felt almost joyful, and you thought, wait, I'm coming to the hospital, my son has cancer, and we're feeling like kids are laughing. I thought, wait a second, there's science that's gone into this, and then I go up into the pediatric oncology ward, so the kids' cancer ward, and the air quality was so clean, and they'd have all these playrooms for kids to do arts and be creative, and the parents could sleep there with their children. So everything was there to help the patient get well. And I was really interested in what made people well. And when my son would come home, he would be, he would look at his toys, and he would just get color back in his face, and he would just be so happy at home. And so that's how I ended up finding the work of my thesis director, Dr. Jackie Fisher.
I mean, it's so important that everybody understands that people that I'm meeting from this show that get into building science and something healthy is because something like this or similar has changed the way they think and feel about it, because you start studying it and you start understanding it. So I commend you. I mean, it is amazing when you go into Children's Hospital and hear these kids are so sick, but they're having the time of their lives, right? We're the ones that maybe are sick sometimes. Who knows?
It's so important to note in life that environment is a factor. It is a factor for the good wolf and the bad wolf, and it just depends what we choose to feed it, right?
100%. All right, I didn't mean to derail you. Now I'm going to put your presentation back up. Get into it.
Awesome. Because this is when the fun stuff starts. So I thought we would give a little framework of the environmental movement, if you want to call it. And this is actually called, and if Zach was there, this is something that he probably knows about, or he should know about. It's called the Gartner hype curve. So the way that line sort of goes up and down, it's like when you get excited about a technology, like, for example, photovoltaics, yeah. And then, oh my gosh, they're so expensive. No, they're not going to work. And then, the Chinese are making them cheaper. So then it goes back up and it takes off. That's the Gartner hype curve. But I'm sort of planning the history of what we're living with the environmental movement based on that curve. So I'm going to start at the very beginning. This is the way I perceive it. So it's really Rachel Carson's book, Silent Spring, that really was the springboard, if I could say that, for the environmental movement. Then when we saw that picture of the Earth, we began to realize in the 70s just how fragile our Earth was. The OPEC oil embargo that I was actually down in California at that time made people realize, oh, what do you mean? It's not like there's like a limit to it. So, and of course, because it's all about the fun that we have here, PH. I got to throw in that precursor to Passive House. The Germans actually came over and saw that little Canadian Saskatchewan house, really super insulated, low energy.
Hey, Susan, I have a slide to introduce there. So when you say the OPEC oil embargo in 1973, and you jump to the 77 Saskatchewan wicked awesome house, we could also add what Sweden did immediately in 73, right? They immediately switched to reduce petroleum because they were fearful of how to heat their buildings, and they took off like a rocket ship.
Well, that's good. I would have to add the flag of the Swedish one up there too. But you're right. That's a good point, because there's other things happening in the world that's influencing this. Thanks for that. And then, well, of course, Jimmy Carter, he puts a solar panels on the White House, right? Wasn't that awesome? But then Reagan comes in and he rips them off because the roof was leaking because of them. That's not so great. Then in 93, a bunch of architects, contractors, developers, academics, they get together and they realize, holy whatever, I don't know what we can say on this show, but
anything you want.
Anything I want, yes. Holy crap, there we go. We've got to do something because this is not good. So they get together and they start talking. Another book comes out, Our Stolen Future. Even though this is 1997, I'm sure it's still really applicable. And what is it? the subtitle for that book, it's like the continuation of Silent Spring. It's by Theo Colburn and a couple of other authors. Are we threatening our fertility, intelligence, and survival? This one is a really scary book. It was well told, like a journalistic detective thriller, really good. And then LEAD started. That was the pilot project in '98. We have a little bit of a dip in the curve here. We renounced Kyoto, but yay. Then the Green Building Council is formed in Canada. They're finally on the program. Things happen. We've got Inconvenience Truth, where Al Gore, he ends up winning the Nobel Prize along with the IPCC. And because I'm from Toronto, I got to throw in what's happening in Toronto as well. We've got the Toronto Green Standard. At the happy hour mark, we're always talking about Vancouver, yay Vancouver, but we got Toronto too. We're trying. So, and then in 2010, that's the house that our friend Sean Saint-Amour always likes to show us, that Austria house. And so that's when the Canadian says, wow, we can really do this. And then just after that, 7 years later, they've got that BC step code. And here we go, 2019, climate emergency. It was called the year of the climate emergency. So we had Toronto declaring a climate emergency. And actually, the federal government of Canada declared a climate emergency. So I won't even talk about all the cities that joined in and the municipalities. So basically 100% of Canadian population is part of this climate emergency. In the US, as of when I was preparing this document here, it's only 9.9% of the population that are comparing it, but we might be in for a bit of a change. 2020, what happened? I don't know. Some of the things that I observed happened. So this working from home, we've also really understood how important technology is in our lives now. There's no going back. But I think there's also a conversation about healthy buildings and about the air in our buildings. And I think we're going to hear more of that going forward. And that conversation about the climate and what's happening in terms of the strange weather events, that's something also that's happening. So I'm going to call them the blazing 20s. I'm not going to call them the roaring 20s because I have another slide coming up after this. The blazing 20s. And we all know what's happening in all these pictures. Everyone on here, I don't have to talk about it. But here, and we do have a few other things that happened that maybe that's kind of crazy, but things are looking up. Things are going to change for the environment. And the reason I wanted to pull this up, I wanted to just do an analogy of 100 years ago when we had the Spanish flu. What happened after everyone got out and partied is it was creativity. Things just boomed and blossomed, and it was this delightful, crazy time. And I really feel that that's where we're going to be heading. So why bike racks? How does this all fit in? I don't know how it fits in. I really don't know, really. Okay. But I want to talk about when I used to teach LEAD with the Green Building Council, the Canada Green Building Council. I used to, the way we would always frame it at the very beginning when we talk about what is a sustainable building, we'd use this paradigm: the people, planet, and profit, the 3 Ps. So for people who don't know that, it basically means if you build a building and everyone hates it, that's not really a sustainable building, because why did you build the building in the first place? If it destroys the environment, well, that's definitely not sustainable. And if it doesn't make economic sense, economic sense meaning following the Keynesian economic models, and I could go off on a tangent there if you want to talk about growth and consumerism and that, but I won't. I'm on staying on track. So why LEAD, right? I spent a lot of my career working on LEAD projects. Well, what good is it? My objective when I started 10, 15 years ago was that it just gives people a way to talk that we can all understand each other. It gives a common language to what a sustainable building is. And so these are some of the categories that LEAD offers. I'm going to get off of LEAD soon.
No, I'm having fun. Go ahead. Enjoy.
You gotta put up a banner.
Susan, this reminds me of the power of language, and Lee truly did allow us to bring words into the world and make them commonplace. And so much so that when we did have I mentioned this on the show before, when we did have the presidential candidates on stage, both of them brought up sustainability and carbon sequestering. And these renewables. These are words used at all levels. It's no longer a bottom up, it's a top down, because the language changed. And Dr. Wayne Dyer, my favorite quote he always gave us is, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at begin to change. And I like the power of language, and I'm glad that you emphasize that. This is a blessing. Keep going, baby. This is awesome.
Thank you. Yeah. It's interesting because I actually had to do a Pecha Kucha, maybe 10, 15, I don't remember when it was, but we had to talk about what was our vision of the future, what was our dream world for building the building industry. And I remember doing this Pecha Kucha, and I saw that we would no longer talk about LEED. That was my dream world. And I feel, at least I'm in that world now. I don't talk about LEED anymore, because it's got its place. It's got its footing. It's in the machine now. It's pushed. The objective was to push code, to challenge it. And that's what it's done.
In the chat later on LinkedIn, you'll have to put in your PK. And Dave, I don't know if you've heard of what she said before. So the word is Pachakacha, and it stands for chit chat. And so in Chicago, Peter and Sharon Exley brought this to Chicago, and it's in cities around the world every day. And what they do is they have 20 slides, and they have 20 seconds per slide. And so they call this Pachakacha, right? The chit chat. And so your slide automatically advances at 20 seconds. So if your timing is right, it goes, but it also allows the framework of audience participation, right? If they're not engaged, they're lost, right? So it's the same ministry of life of keeping that engagement and keeping the presenter flowing. And I can't wait to see your Pachakacha. And Edie Dillman and I were talking this week, and we shared each other our Pachakachas. So this is a Pachakacha week.
Pachakacha. I don't even know how to spell that.
So a lot of people say Pecha Kucha because, the English language, we have no idea how to pronounce words. But it is Pachakacha. And Dave, this is a challenge right here that you have to do a Pachakacha, and we'll all be there to support you, brother.
Pechakucha. Hey, listen, I'd like to think I was really smart and quick on my banners. Susan, thanks for sending that to me. I had no idea how to spell it. We should. I actually love that idea. That way people can't get too full of themselves. They got to move.
Yeah, we got
a ton of education fast.
We got in trouble in Chicago, right? Our Passive House group, 11 years running, once a month. We did an event in the summertime along with our friends at Illinois Green, and Dave knows the Green Build Home Tour, and we did a Pachakacha, but we called it Pachakacha, and obviously that's a violation. And they just asked us not to do it again without permission, because there is a whole process of doing that, and so we came up with creative name change, but it's just brilliant. And anyone out there that's been a Pachakacha, we know what we're talking about. It's so fun to do, and you start with like 80 slides, and then you reduce it to 20, and then you practice and rehearse, and it's just a brilliant atmosphere. So in Chicago, it's highly involved with architects, because Peter and Sharon Exley founded it, and Peter's the president of AIA, so he's really in architecture. So that happened to bring it forward. But I know we're off subject, but man, I'm excited about Pachakucha again. So back to you, Susan.
No, it is awesome. And it's interesting that you say the English language, we don't know how to say things. Like my husband, he grew up in Germany. So when he came to Canada as a kid, he would say Mercedes and Adidas and Porsche. And he'd say, well, why don't you say it? That's the way you're supposed to say it. It was because in English, we don't say it that way. So I know it sounds but I would just stick to Pachakucha.
Yeah. You know, it's funny though. My Jennifer, who was on earlier, they all say Adidas and that, but she comes from the fashion world, so maybe that's why.
Oh,
I'm an American. I say Adidas.
Adidas, yeah. Cool. So what have I got next? Oh, I got some more stuff on this.
Let's go.
What's in red there? What is that in red?
Bicycle favorites. Factories.
The bike facilities, right? Well, anyway, I was just mentioning that. So if we go to, if you can see that indoor environmental quality, that's what really got me excited. Like what really pissed me off about LEED back then was that they changed it so that energy and atmosphere was so important, but they missed the whole boat. It's all about carbon. And what they were talking at the time was about how much it costs. So you design a building, a crappy building, okay, full of glass. That'd be your base case. And then to show you're saving energy, you reduce by a certain percentage of the energy cost. That's what it was. So it was kind of like, you guys are missing the point. So that pissed me off a bit. And then they reduced the amount of the indoor environmental quality. So I sort of got a little turned off. I still liked it that it was teaching people language and it was good. And there's a lot of good people working on it. So I'm not going to diss it anymore.
So the other reason it was is a pisser, as you said, is the definition of this wonderful acronym is leadership in energy and environmental design. So when energy gets reduced, the environment, right, which is our IAQ and our off-gassing and a host of things that Denise and some other speakers in the past shared with us. Please go back and look at Denise's presentation about this. It was a starting point, and thankfully they continued to react, right? And we had another lead and another lead because everyone upped their game, and then they became inclusive, and they said, we're not just going to do a building. As Doug Farr said, we're going to do an entire development, right? Why are we focusing on one structure when we can transform lives in epic proportions? So
yeah, you're talking LEED for neighborhood development, LEED ND, right? So you're right, it grew out of that. And so to your point, you're sort of leading me back to the bike racks, so it's one of those things that it's not just about energy, it's about your experience. That's why I got into it. And the bike racks is promoting that when you come to work, you have a shower, because that's part of the requirement. You get to have a shower there. You actually have a place that you can have covered bike racks. You know, so your bike is safe and you don't worry about the ride there. So it really, it was dragging on or pushing or pulling, that's the word, I can't remember what you call it, to make that change. But what I really liked was that a lot of it was based on research. Like, for example, the natural light, I don't know if you know where it comes from. I think it's Roger Ulrich, who was an architect who had research. It was published in Science, and this is going back now, like the 90s, I think. And he had taken the results from people who had gallbladder operations, and they were recovering in a hospital, and there were 3 hospital rooms. One room had a window that looked out to the brick walls. Another one, it looked out to the sky. Another one looked out to the trees in the sky. And he basically, looked into whether the people were smokers and their age and all that kind of stuff. And he normalized for that, but he looked to see how quickly they cured. And it wasn't just how fast they left the hospital, it was how much pain medicine they took while they were recovering. It was also how often they called the nurse for help. And so that he showed that the room that looked out of the window with the trees, basically you healed faster, and then that work was reproduced. And so a lot of the stuff that is in LEED is comes from very rigorous research. So I like it for that. I like it for that. Yeah. So moving on. So, okay, come on, what's happening now? Where are we going to?
No, so let's take a moment and say hi to a couple things here, people, real quick. Mark, if you're good with that. I was waiting for the thumbs up, but we got a couple comments.
I'm interested in looking out the window right now because I could see trees and blue sky and
you're gonna live a long life, Mark.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, my grandma hit 100, right? So we're good. We're good.
Yeah.
All right, Dave, take it away.
All right, let's we got a couple people that want to say hi. We got Cecilia M. Hey, from Leah and Cecilia in Calgary. No Chinooks today. Brr. Love it.
Dave, do you know what a Chinook is?
Are we talking like a whoop 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 Chinook? Like a helicopter?
Isn't that interesting? How we all see things differently.
Wow.
I mean, that's what we had. I mean, I used to jump out of the back of them in the military. I mean, that's what we called them, a Chinook.
Interesting. You called that a Chinook. So,
yeah,
Sean, if you're out there, can you put your definition of Chinook in the chat? And Dave, you're officially the new helicopter guy. You took Sean's spot, so now you're the Chinooker of the crowd.
The only problem is I just don't have anybody that actually has a helicopter or can fly it. Sean does, so he has one leg up on me.
Oh, you've got some men in uniform. That's for sure.
Yeah, I could probably get picked up here and again. All right, love it. All right, Peter Molnar, hooray for mechanical engineering. Love it. You got a fan. All right, Sean saying no more. He's on YouTube now. Always having fun on BS Friday. You know, when Sean's jumping around like this, it means one of two things. It means one, his kids fell asleep on time tonight, or two, they're driving him crazy. So he's trying to entertaining them by or putting them to sleep watching us. Maybe is the.
This past weekend, his daughter had a birthday, and great family, very creative, Dave, and she's been working on her vision board, and it's so neat when you have, I believe she's either 8 or 11, right, Sean? When you have children creating vision boards with their parents, it's such a beautiful thing.
Oh, I bet. And his kids are adorable. So, all right, let's see here. Moving forward. LinkedIn user IAQ. Finally, I can't see.
What's that mean? Why the final?
Tiger Aster, ASTER. Do you know? Thank you, Tiger. I don't know why he has to change his settings in LinkedIn for it to pop up on the third-party software. So that's who made that comment as we look through. Moving down the line, Peter Molnar says 7 P's of architecture. Proper prior planning prevents piss poor performance. Well, I don't think that's just in architecture. But for today's sake, it's all about architecture. I love it. Hey, you know who I think is one of the nicest, funniest guys out there? Like every time I speak to him, he just makes me smile. Take a guess who that could be, Mark.
I thought you were talking about yourself, Dave.
Listen, I can make myself laugh, but then I'm going to be put in a straitjacket. I'm talking about the one and only Etienne. Very interesting natural light study. CEO of SIGA North America. What is happening, Etienne?
Etienne, we and I talked this week. He's an amazing man.
Yeah, he is. Love him to death. So thanks for joining us. All right, we got 2 more comments, and then we are moving on. Chinook, warm, dry, gusty, westerly wind that blows down the Rocky Mountains into the mountains, eastern slopes, and the western prairies. And then he wraps it up with, you 3 are adorable. That's better than calling us deplorable, in this. We are adorable. I love it. So was he right on that?
That we're adorable?
No, well, yes, I know he's right on that. Okay. I mean, come on, just look at yourself. We're still waiting for that dance, Susan.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, the whole thing was that I looked at myself on the screen. I was going, oh my gosh, with my haircut, I look like Ellen DeGeneres, and I was like, I got to do the little,
If only Ellen made an impact on our built environment the way that you did, we'd be so well off.
Yeah.
There's a challenge.
I think Ellen, if you're out there, Ellen and I, we went to high school together. We dated for a few years. Ellen, if you're out there, please have Susan on your show. You'll love it, and have her back weekly, and we'll all love it. So thanks, Ellen.
Love it, love it, love it. All right, everybody. Thanks for those comments. All right, Susan, listen, we're already at almost 49 minutes into this
That's the good
presentation.
part. I really am. Okay. This
Well,
next
it's all been
slide
good so far.
is hard. Hang on.
It's all been good so far. That means you're probably either going to take it to the next level, but I know you're not going to let us down.
No,
Yeah, we
no.
only have 2 more hours to go, so we're all set.
Okay, so
There's the
2.0,
humbleness.
guys, come on, let's focus here. 2.0. So it actually needs to be 2020. So you know what?
Focus, Mark.
What is
I
it?
said focus, Mark.
Focus.
He wants me to stay focused, Susan. Take the mic away from us, Susan. Let's get to sustainability 2.
But this is so cool, this part, because this is instead of the 3 Ps. This is where we're going for the next 10 years. This is what we're going to talk about. Instead of it being like the person, it's going to be about the health and comfort. Comfort's going to be big. And with Passive House, we've got the language. And I changed it to be a little bit more accessible instead of calling it, low greenhouse gas emitting, or I called it carbon friendly.
Susan, I have a problem with that slide. It should be carbon friendly with a PH and future proof with a PH. Sorry, folks, she's not cooperating today.
I'll fix that.
You guys can pick up. You can pick up Mark Willie's dictionary, any Amazon distribution center, Barnes and Nobles. They're all out there.
There's no letter F. Yeah. So the word future proof, I was talking with, was it Scott Kennedy? I think we were in one of those chat boxes in our happy hour. And I gave him, actually, it was a word that, sorry, I forget his name, but Sean, you might be able to help me with this if you're still there. It's their marketing person at 475 who gave us some language to use, because we get sort of wrapped up in the way we talk internally in our industry, using the word like resilient buildings. Like, who the heck knows what that means, really, honestly? Because so I use the word future proofing. I'll change that to PH, Mark, thanks. Because it's about the climate, it's about the craziness that's happening. I mean, it used to be you could design knowing you had tables of what the rainfall was going to be, you knew what the temperatures were going to be. It's just all over the place now, and that's the truth. And so basically building for these crazy weather events that are happening. But I just wanted to sneak a little bit, thank you. I just wanted to sneak this in. And this might be getting really a bit too theoretical, but using the word comfort, it's sort of like, some things sort of like, make me sort of bristle when I hear people talk about comfort, because I studied it in a certain paradigm. And this is a model from Dr. Vischer, Dr. Jacqueline Vischer. I studied with her at the University of Montreal. And it's called the habitability, I can't even say the word. There's no PH in there, Mark. Habitability threshold. The habitability pyramid, kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, moving up to blah, blah, blah. So below that habitability threshold is basically discomfort. You're living on the street, shelter. Up above that is the physical comfort. So then you're physically, that's what we talk about a lot in Passive House, thermal comfort, for example. Or as we move up higher, because I'm a workplace strategic consultant, it has to do with, for example, some people say it's ergonomics, but it's beyond that. It's what you need to get your tasks done, what you need to perform. And at the very top is the psychological comfort. So basically, if you're talking about a corporation or a company, it's, do you feel like you fit in there? Like the corporate culture, is it something that you fit in with? So there's many levels of comfort that we sometimes forget about because we're so much into buildings and the built world, but you can never get away from human behavior in a building. And there's good stuff coming, okay?
This is all good. I love it. Keep going.
We had great examples of this several weeks back, Susan, when we had Patty Lloyd from Leopardo on, and she was providing insight as to their new dual certified lead and well building, and so they had everything from the break room, what was there in terms of fruit and healthy choices, and water. They didn't have unhealthy choices there, and they had plants all around the environment that they work in, and open space together. So these were great examples, and when you bring it forward in this data chart, it's inviting. Thank you for sharing that.
No, thank you. And this is me who's written this. You're not going to find this. It's sort of my thinking of where we're going. And maybe there's other stuff out there because we're all sort of talking the same kind of language. I just want to dwell a teeny bit more about comfort and stress in the built environment. You know, there's studies out there that they talk about when you're working and you're in the zone and all of a sudden somebody interrupts you, you get a ping or something. And that apparently it takes you 20 minutes is what the studies tell you to get back into that focused zone. So it's a similar thing in terms of the built environment. When you're working or when you're doing something, you need to be in that zone. Like, you cannot have environmental stressors that pull you away. So the ultimate goal is to always that the built environment is helping you, supporting you, moving on. So
if you're sitting at your desk and you have this ridiculous building full of a ridiculous amount of glazing, and it's right next to a train track, and they're not worried or they're not controlling the sound attenuation, right? You're sitting there trying to focus and get your project done so you could go back to your friends and family, and then boom, you have a 20-minute knockoff.
Exactly.
Awesome.
So yeah, so you can actually put dollars to that value as well. Right. So there's like the work that I do, I use surveys that have been tested and validated. So we look for acoustic comfort and visual comfort, and we assess it. You can basically kind of map it over a building of how people are experiencing that building. Yeah.
I have a chart that I need to make, Susan, and on the job sites and in the fabrication shop, when I'm trying to encourage productivity, because I know that we're going to have a long day, I bring in tamales, and the tamales get people working faster and full of energy and enjoying the atmosphere, and then we get green salsa in our beard.
I want to come work for you, man.
All right. Now I've just distracted you, Susan, so it's going to take you 20 minutes to get back on task.
I just, once again, I got to toot Toronto's horn because I'm not in Vancouver and I have to try something. I don't know if anyone's talked about this before on the show, but we have this, this was written in 2017, and it was a bunch of engineers, not architects, which is interesting to see their perspective. They're approaching the passive house standard, and there's a timeline, and this is also taken from that same document, a zero emissions document. And basically we're going to be talking the language, we're moving towards this, which is a passive house language. I'm going to go starting at the top here. This is the language of LEED when we're talking about energy. This is the language of passive house. And as we move down lower, this is when we start talking about carbon friendly with a pH, the greenhouse gases. So it's interesting, I think even people in the building profession in Toronto are not even aware of what's coming down the pipeline. And it's quite surprising.
Yeah, Christy May, remember, Dave? She was talking about the TUI, the Teddy, and the Gigi.
Yeah, you know what, she was, but this is the first time like I'm actually reading it and understanding what it's saying. So the visual impact of this is it works for my simple mind.
It's insightful that this came from a group of engineers, because I guess when you're driving the train every day, you get to think about buildings as well. So I think it's great that engineers think about buildings, not just trains.
I don't know. Do you want me to explain a little bit more what these
I do.
Are?
I do. Yes.
Okay. So in LEED, for example, when you're talking about energy, you're calculating that's the first one, the total energy use intensity. So how much energy does it require to heat your building, to run all the equipment, and all that kind of stuff. And the way you do it, like I think I said before, you build a base design of you in your computer, you do a base model, and then the design that you build is going to be better in terms of the energy. So, crappy building, crappy energy, but it's better than the first crappy one. But what these engineers did for the city of Toronto is they looked at all of the high performance building standards and codes out there, Passive House being one of them. And those all target the TEDI instead of the TEUI. So the TEDI is it's basically the amount of energy that you need to maintain a constant temperature, taking into account all the heat losses and gains that happen through the building envelope, or the heat gain that comes from just the building occupants, or now all of the computers and machines that we have in the building. So it's a very aggressive number, the TEDI. So if buildings are going to have to be going towards that Passive House standard, super insulated, airtight, thermal bridged out the yin yang, making sure that nothing's going on. And mechanical systems are not going to be driving the comfort of buildings. It's really going to be in the architect's hands.
Yeah.
And then the last one, the GG, I've never heard it called that, but I guess we might as well give it that. Basically, that's when you start talking about embodied carbon. And there are three levels of carbon. I think I showed it in the first one. There's the embodied carbon in your building materials. There's the carbon that with the energy, for example, that you consume. And then the last one has to do is where are you getting the energy from? And it's all about the carbon. It's the carbon stupid, right? That kind of thing. Is that clear?
Very clear. You know what's great? Like all this carbon talk. I mean, even for somebody like myself that does not have a building science background, it's so prevalent everywhere you go. It seems like more and more people are talking about carbon footprints and how it impacts our environment, not only on the grassroots level, but it's also happening, as we were talking earlier, on a global political level. And I think this is an interesting thing. And I think one day, not this show, Mark, but we should have a whole show just talking about what carbon is, so people truly understand it and how they can relate what causes a carbon impact, footprint.
And what on the other side is, what about carbon sequestering, right? And the other offshoots of it. It's funny, Dave, when you say it, right? So many people jump to that, and all of us just have our own pathway. But when we call it the carbon footprint,
right,
it's almost the wrong phrase. So the power of language, right, is something that's very important of how Susan brought forward today. And when all of us picture a footprint, we picture this little thing, maybe in the sand or in the snow or in the mud. And that's our footprint, right? Or maybe we picture when our child was born and they did the black stamp on the white paper. But in fact, that footprint is ginormous, right? I don't think there's one of us that can claim that we have a footprint, right? It's such a polite little politically correct nonsense statement. It's like a carbon disaster might be a better way to put it. What's your carbon disaster, right? Something of epic.
That's a t-shirt. That's a t-shirt right there. What's your carbon disaster? Well, hey, listen, I agree with you, but the common term out to anybody outside of building science is carbon footprint, right? That's what they understand. So when we talk about some of these other carbon words, by saying carbon footprint, I think people go, oh, okay. And then you bring them into the conversation, right? Because you're right, this in building science, and I'm becoming one of them, in my mind, where I start using these lingos and I forget most of the world doesn't understand what the heck we're talking about. Just like with the pH Fridays and pH, right? Like we got to bring that down and make it the norm by constantly talking about it and helping people understand. So I agree with you. Carbon disaster.
Dave and I do this all the time. And by the way, if you didn't know, Dave is also an air boss. He was trained by SIGA. So we go into this all the time, and Dave heavily goes into it in the construction side of saying we have all these terms. Is it modular? Is it offsite? Is it building systems? Right? And it's a vast pool of different way of articulating the same thing. And since we're all invested in it, Dave, I think you're right. We need to have a dialogue day of
that'd be fun.
Of, basically glossary of terms, right? And how we're using the idioma, the semantic, and the power we put in it, or the power we neglect, truthfully, to include.
Well, I got an idea, and we'll jump back into this real quick. So not to get too far off topic. So we have a conversation. Susan, you come back and join us on this this carbon, whatever we want to call it, footprint, disaster, global crisis, what's your carbon global crisis? But I think we have the first part of the show, we talk about it, Mark. And then I think on the second part of the show, we bring the audience in and let them tell us what they think their carbon disaster is, just to bring the real world into it. And like, well, here's how I'm screwing everything up. I mean, heck, I'm getting ready to drive a big diesel pusher all over the country, right?
Well, there's benefits to diesel. There certainly are. So a true roundtable battle royal. And how many presenters are we allowed on the wonderful StreamYard platform, Dave?
Is it how many we can have, or is how many I can manage?
We can have. I think it's the thousands. You can manage to cast the thousands.
I think it's 11.
11, and I think is it 6 or 9 are allowed on the screen at the same time. And
I think it's 9 on the screen at the same time, and I think you can have 11 with 2 or 3 in the holding tank, something like that.
So we'll have to do it like in wrestling format, where we have to tag the other person, right? And then we tag them in. And so it's I
got to put this up. I'm sorry. Dave is an ass. Air sealing specialist. Hey, that's funny. John, you made my day.
You're adding that to the language, okay?
I love it. I'm gonna get a shirt. I'm an ass.
It's beautiful. Do you have time for a quick story?
Me or Susan?
Everyone out there. So years and years and years ago, Sean, this is the story I wanted to tell the other night. I was presenting at a conference, and my company was Market Company, and the other company was Associated as something, right? And the guy was brilliant and very popular and well known. And they asked me to speak first. And so I said, well, since the other party has been in the industry longer than I have, I request that the crowd allow him to speak first. So I tried to manipulate the conference. And I said, without further ado, I would like to introduce the ass. And the guy got to the microphone, spoke for about 40 seconds, and walked off stage. And then I spoke for 40 minutes straight. It was really good for business, and I was the youngest presenter of that time, but they brought me back every year after that.
I love it.
All right, back to you, Susan.
All right, back to you, Susan.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at the time. I don't know if you want to keep going on this.
We got 2 more hours. We're good.
Well, yes, yeah. In Mark's humble world, but yeah. Go ahead. Let's go.
So this is I'm not going to say I stole it, because I'm giving him credit. This is Monty Paulson's his course, Pattern Language for Passive House. Really amazing course. Monty did an incredible job, and so I borrowed this from Monty, and it just basically shows the evolution of all of these high performance building standards, where we came from. If you start from the bottom, going in the 70s, kind of like I showed with that Gardner hype curve, that history. We started with some crazy stuff, and when we realized, guys, we're waking up, we've got to do something. LEED comes, Living Building Challenge comes. Now LEED they've got the zero carbon. At least I know we have it here in Canada. Canada Green Building Council has a zero carbon program. As you move up the house, then Passive House started in Germany, and like like Zach was saying, it's really passive house, and house means eine bauen, you know, a building. So I sometimes that I could have a whole conversation, the fact that we use the term house. But anyway, there was a little bit of a divorce in the house. Fias happened, and there you go. ASHRAE is going to be hitching themselves onto the bandwagon. They're probably just going to repeat everything that Passive House says. Sorry, really cynical. Okay.
Yeah, it's a very what do you call it? Not all these groups are agnostic, right? Some are very incestuous, right? And ASHRAE is a standard that you know, we know that a lot of folks from Passive House were influential in getting this in. So the more people we can have speaking a language, the less people we have to have banging the drums.
Making music, okay.
Yep.
So, yeah. So this is just showing you where we're heading. And Monty had suggested that we're pushing the codes, and it's true. That's what I said. That was the goal of LEAD back then. Passive House is going to do the same thing. We're just pushing, hoping for change. All right, moving on. Thank you, Monty. This is exciting. Okay, this framework here from the World Green Building Health Council, it really shows you. So if you look what they're talking about, health, comfort, behavior, the social aspect, it's really about the experience in the built environment. Nature, you've got to bring nature in. I told you about that study with the windows and natural light. You've got to bring nature in. And oh, by the way, we've got something called a climate emergency happening, FYI. So I really love the way that they're looking at how we need to talk about buildings in the World Green Building framework.
And Dave, in the coming weeks, we will have Monty Paulson speaking.
Yep.
And I'll warn you, when Monty speaks, we won't have a chance to say a thing. He's got so much information. It's just going to be a wild ride. That will be a 6-hour show for sure.
Well, his pattern language is 4 days, 3 hours each day.
Yep. And he actually doesn't breathe. He doesn't take a breath during it.
Keeps going.
Yep.
Yeah, it's all excellent. So, okay, now pop quiz for you guys, or anybody. I want to know, why do we build? Why do we build buildings?
You're asking me?
I'm asking, yes, Dave, go ahead.
Why do we build buildings? Now, I know I'm probably not going to get this correct, but I would say for shelter.
Uh-huh.
Right? And to protect our families.
Yes.
Right? A comfortable place to stay, to live, to breathe, to eat, just, for protection.
Yeah.
Bob Dylan says, come in and give me shelter from the storm. So that's exactly what I always go to. The shelter is amazing. And then later on, we added MEP to our cabins.
Well, I'm going to even peel it away further than shelter. You're building shelter for people. Really, we build buildings for people. And that's sort of what I come back to. And that's the pair of glasses that I wear. My work is always about the people. And if you can make it sustainable, that's great too. So that's the last slide. Bike racks, I think I mentioned it once, but take the jump and let's have fun. And what is it? The Blazing 20s.
I love it.
The Blazing 20s is a new coined phrase. And Susan, that was excellent.
That was excellent. I mean, listen, this has been a good show. Well, one, it's the first time I've been called an ass on my show. So, right, Mark? I mean, even Mark doesn't call us that, right? So,
we have to give Sean the BS pause for calling you out like that, Dave.
I love it. No, man, that was the best compliment I've had in a long time.
Actually, that's going to open up a challenge, right? Since you had the SIGA training, I think it's only necessary that Sean invite you up to British Columbia to have the BCIT and 475 and Teleproclima.
You should go up there. Yeah.
Yeah. Then you could be an air boss in all of North America, not just the U.S., but lovely Canada.
I'm learning fast. I love it. I love it. Susan, I think it's an outstanding presentation. I mean, what I like about it is you just simplify it. You know, you simplified the walk through the journey. And I truly believe in all the things that you're saying, and where we're headed is, so crucial to how we move forward, because like you said, right now we're going to build shelter. We're short on shelter. We're short on homes, right? For people, we build for people. Well, guess what? We're millions of shelters short. So understanding that if we're going to meet that demand and that crisis, and we're going to put our best foot forward, if we don't look at these other ways of building or these other methods that we can use to build better, it'll add to a global disaster?
Carbon disaster.
Carbon disaster, right? It's going to add to our carbon disaster.
Do we have Zach in the fish tank, or did he?
We do. Oh no, he looks like Zach had to run. Where's he at here?
Okay.
No, Zach ran. He was there a few minutes ago, but yeah, we're a little over. It's all right.
A little over. Susan, you made a comment in our private chat here, and I want to bring light to both of them. One is the book is by Roger Ulrich, who did the study on the bricks and the sky and the trees, right? And then a great segue to next week. So Anthony Pack happens to be the presenter next week.
Oh, no way.
Yes. And the week after that is Chris Ballard, who you also know. So Dave, Anthony Pack, a different brain than Monty, certainly a different brain than each of us. Data driven genius. I swear, like if I was the Atari 2600, he would be the whatever that massive mega computer that controls all the satellites is.
I had an Atari 400.
What's that?
Remember the Atari 400s? Flat. It was like one of the first ones that came out.
Well, there's the ColecoVision, and then I thought it was the Atari 2600.
Oh, Atari 400 and Atari 800, I think it was. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
It was the one that a blue collar family could afford if they saved up long enough months to get back in the 80s. All right.
So there, I believe I put the link at the beginning of today's show, 3 hours ago to Anthony's Pack presentation. So if everyone can register and share, right? We need you to share that, and people at all levels, from architects to engineers to municipalities to contractors to associations. When you hear from Anthony, you're going to have an eye awakening, and you're probably going to have a ton of questions, because like Susan, he's bringing this impeccable experience, and he's delivering in a way that you can have these pinpoints of insight. And I'm thrilled for it.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. I can say, even with the comment, Sean put a comment in there, so I think that's going to rock and roll. There was a question here. Let me go real quick. They were asking about the link. They said we didn't do the link. When the border is out, no, Dave invited B said hi. Okay, there we go. That wasn't the one I was looking for. Let me go up a little bit further.
You're talking about the link to next week, Dave?
No.
You mentioned Anthony Pack's.
Yeah.
He's the Carbon Leadership Forum. He organizes that.
Love the show. Wondering why the link was not shared for a broader reach. I'm not sure which link, Tiger, you're talking about, but let us know and or put it in the comments and tag one of us, and we'll definitely get the link up there if we didn't. I was putting some of the links up, whatever was being shared with me, so those things are definitely in.
And also religiously, the people that register for the show, sometimes they're not used to knowing how to get on. And so when we start the show habitually now every week, I include that into the conversation point, a live link to the show. So we're sorry if people can't get on it in that way. That's not our intention.
Yeah.
We do work for free with a PH, but that doesn't mean we like any mistakes. with a PH. So anyway,
it is.
Yeah,
the platforms don't make it easy, and it's technology and it's live, and if it can go wrong, it will. It's just, it's Murphy's Law, as they call it. And but I agree with all that.
Yep.
So, all right, let me just see. I think I see a couple more things popping up. I want to thank everybody. He said this YouTube link. Got it. Hey, listen, coming right up. You ask, you will receive. Give me 1 second here, and I will pull that up. Mark, why don't you tell everybody what you have coming up, and then we gotta split this show off and carry on.
So every weekend, Dave, Sean Santamore and I, we release the 5-day forecast for all events in the industry. We include things like the Unbuild It podcast, like Better Construction with Sean
McStay.
We include Ken Levinson's talk, Chris Ballard's talk, BS and Beer Show's talk. We include the Global Passive House Accelerator Happy Hour. We include the construction technical technique and technology. And if there's an event that you have, please let us know. Every week, we hyperlink Dave Cooper on that list because he has shows Monday through Saturday, and most of us attend all of them. So all of these platforms, the brilliant part of it is we used to, as Susan said, the internet, when it was first started, we didn't have these things and it was hard to find. Now you can enjoy building science, offsite technologies, building systems, passive house, etc. a couple times a day. It's mind-numbing how much this is everywhere. So I'm live every Tuesday. I join events every Wednesday and Thursday. And speaking of Thursday nights, Dave, the BS and Beer Show will be joining BS Friday Live. And that is going to be fun. I'm sure there will be some BS coming on, but I've done long interviews with each of those folks. And it's fun when Dave and I don't have to talk. We just sit back and enjoy our proteges.
We sit back and enjoy our beers.
Yep.
I love it. I love it. Susan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, guys.
Mark, always a pleasure. You do such a wonderful job bringing on the experts to this show each week. And everybody out there needs to know how hard you work at this, because you do a lot of work behind the scenes pulling this show together and bringing the people in like Susan. And Susan, we've been putting your name and your banner up there. I'm going to put it up there one more time. So if you guys want to reach out to Susan, click on this link, if I can get to it right here, www.susanr.ca. Go there, hit that contact us form. It works. We checked it. So contact Susan if you need her assistance or you just want to pick her brain. And Susan, Mark, you guys have a good one. Susan, hang tight. We'll come to you right after the outro here. And everybody else, thank you so much. I will see you tomorrow morning at our new road show, because we're picking it up in a couple hours, picking up the transportation.
Wow, we get to see it tomorrow, Dave?
I might show a little bit of it tomorrow. We might do that depending on the weather. But yeah, we're picking that up. The road show is official, and we're going to be coming to somewhere near you. We're traveling the entire country, and we will be coming to Canada as well. We're going to be going to universities and everything else, and going to trade schools. We're really bringing the youth into what we do. So stay tuned for more information on that. Susan, you have a wonderful afternoon. Mark, you have a blessed nap after this. I know Mark likes his naps. I'm Dave Cooper. We'll see you next time. Bye now.